But now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know, I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in-store, and exclusive access to sold-out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
The Vietnam War, it's over. Your job has just begun.
A new HBO original limited series.
Welcome to the world of spycraft. Strap in.
From executive producers Park Chan-wook and Robert Downey Jr.
What are you concealing?
Based on the Pulitzer Prize-winning novel by Viet Thanh Nguyen.
What if I told you that I was a communist spy?
How did you become this?
The Sympathizer, streaming April 14th on Max. Subscription required.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Gibbo.
Hey, Ben, it's Giles.
How's it going, man? You good?
Could you tell me about that time when we played at the Hope and Anchor in Islington?
Oh, shit. Wait, was that where... Shit, that is a memory that I had completely forgotten that.
Go on.
Yeah, so I lost my... Yeah, I forgot my drumsticks, as you do as a drummer. Yeah, I remember it now. And then I think I had to go. Was it you and me? We left the venue and went around the local park to try and find some sticks, some twigs, to use as drumsticks for the gig. I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah, that sounds about right. You forgot the part where you were borrowing someone else's kit and specifically their snare drum.
Yeah, so I think I just not bring anything. I must have just not brought anything. Maybe I brought my cymbals or something, but yeah. So I think that was it. Because I seem to remember as well, whoever it was, I just have a feeling of being obviously judged, because musicians judge other musicians, but also quite negatively, because obviously I'd sort of last minute asked to borrow this guy's breakables, which as a drummer is that's bad form. Plus then not having sticks and then going to a local park to try and find some twigs to use. What a shambles. Yeah, thank you for reminding me. I'd actually completely forgotten about that. To me, that sums me up perfectly as a drummer. Just a complete and utter fraud. More or less.
Hello there, you're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder. It's where I speak to bands and artists and we get to hear about everything they do to make their music work. On today's episode, the first of 2024, Max Levy, who fronts Garden Centre, a band that's in a wide web of other bands and artists that includes The Tubs and Porridge Radio, Sniffany and the Knits, and actually there's a Guardian family tree that someone cleverly put together of all the different bands that they're in. I'll be speaking to Max for quite a few months about doing this episode because I knew that they worked as, well, I don't want to spoil it, but they worked a pretty interesting job on Brighton seafront.
I didn't call the police, I was busy. Someone called the police and they came and they started chasing the children around the nudist beach. And there were all these nudists, like these naked old, like older gentlemen, just in like little caps and like gloves or the weird extra bits that nudists wear. They all just like being surrounded by children while police chased them around and around. And the children escaped. It was amazing. They actually got away.
So that's going to come very shortly. Garden Centre's latest record came out last May. It's called Searching for a Stream. It's got a really original sound. It's quite angular. It's got a good weightiness of jangle to it. Max's voice is just totally recognisable. That stands out in a million voices. In fact, the first time I saw Max was as King of Cats in Brighton years ago. And I remember walking through the Green Door store and I remember thinking, what is that voice? That's such an interesting voice. So glad to speak with Max today. Thank you very much for listening. Shout out to our sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival, great independent festival down in Cheltenham, just a few hours away of the train from London. They just won the Best Medium-Sized Festival Award for the second year running, and I think they've won it 3 or 4 times over the years. Brilliant festival, all kinds of music from indie to punk to hardcore to folk. The Gaslight Anthem are headlining the Thursday night. Manchester Orchestra, Better Lovers, Dune Rats, Gouge Away, Hot Mulligan. You can pick up your tickets now from 2000trees.co.uk.
Introducing Ampolo, the new app for musicians. Using AI stem separation, play along to any song, improving your practice and performance. Record audio or video and connect with musicians all over the world, collaborating and creating together. Think Google Docs meets TikTok, but for musicians. There's a huge range of video and audio editing tools, and the best part, it's free. Download today and make your mark. Ampolo, made for music.
If you've got an iPhone, Ampolo is the one for you. It's totally free. Any song, you can go get the stems and play along with it from your bedroom, from your living room, anywhere you want to be. Ampolo is the app you want to get if you're playing music. So here's Max Levy of Garden Centre here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. 101 Part-Time Jobs. Where did you grow up? What was the first thing that happened in your life, Max, where you thought, oh, that's a really cool thing to make with your hands, to make by yourself, or with, friends, but to make?
To make music. It was probably, because I grew up in, I don't know what kind of village you grew up in, but I grew up in a village. And it was going to kind of youth centre-y type places.
Yeah. Religious in adjacent centres.
It was it was like religious adjacent centres that were also really keen on putting on like post-hardcore shows. I don't know if that happened in where you lived.
Yeah, it did. Amersham Jubilee Hall. That was when I first saw my first post-hardcore band.
Yeah, I don't know why it was so prevalent in sort of like soft power religious institutions in smaller towns, is that the main kind of music would be post-hardcore.
And is this in the time of Thursday?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's like I remember there was like a really popular local post-hardcore band called Archangel.
Okay.
And they were like always playing. There was also like in the local scout hall there used to always be desert rock bands playing for some reason. Yeah. In this village.
Where is this? Where are we talking?
Steve Oliveri. Yeah. We're talking the village of Ensham.
Okay. I don't know it.
It had a weirdly big desert rock scene. Steve Oliveri used to practice in the Scout Hut, the one that was a bad man from Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah. Nick Olivieri.
Nick Olivieri, yeah.
Why was he going to... Did you say Ensham?
Yeah. I don't know. There wasn't many people there, but I think a third of the people there were playing in desert rock bands.
So this is near Oxford. We're in Oxfordshire.
Yeah. People loved Zeke there.
Yes. Yeah.
It was a very heavy Zeke rotation in Ensham.
Those struck me as the kind of bands where the people in those bands and the people who go to see those bands and subscribe to that culture, is there an element of taking music quite seriously?
I think there was, but they were also kind of quite like all the kids that were into the desert rock stuff in high school were also like the sort of goofy stoner kids.
Awesome.
And like there was also a big crossover with kids that loved Jackass.
Yeah.
Yeah. I jumped out of a tree once to get into it so that I could afford the privilege of sitting down in a circle next to a group of 10 people that loved Zeke, and then there was a big queue behind me of other kids waiting to jump out of the tree. Like there was this weird like self-destructive silliness to it, which is quite innocent and sweet in hindsight, although obviously some of the bigger like adults involved in it were neither sweet or innocent.
So there was a hierarchy of how goofy and silly you were, and the higher you climbed up that ladder, basically the more friends you had ultimately.
Yeah, I don't know if it was like that. I think it was much nicer than that. It was like genuine dumb. It was like genuine dumb self-sabotage. Like it wasn't very kind of self-serving, really.
Nice. That's best way to be. I was irked at a young age by the sort of, even in my friend group, who is still my closest friends, I still think, fuck you, there is a social hierarchy here and I don't like it, for one. And it might be something to do with the fact that I'm near the bottom of it.
Yeah, it's you do find yourself more perceptive of it when you're not reaping the benefits.
So people getting involved, I mean, I feel like the one thing that Jackass taught us was to film your own stuff. And if you have, I mean, they had that skateboard magazine, came on a trip to London, filmed each other doing stupid stuff. And then it basically morphed into the biggest TV show in the world for our generation.
It's really switched into this bizarre thing where they were being exploited, which is really weird because they were doing really well for themselves. But they are actually these kind of dysfunctional guys that needed to clown on everyone.
R.I.P. Chris Dunn. Bam Margera is going through some hard times.
It's pretty grim because they've come into adulthood and they're like sort of the structures that upheld them are all as paper thin as we probably think they are,
right?
And they're all being kind of left by the wayside. Not that they're like the world's most vulnerable people, but they are kind of vulnerable.
Are you being rewarded for self-pain? And for me, where I grew up in northwest London, Gallows was a massive band for me. And I spoke to Frank Carter the other week, and we would talk about the same thing. And he said, he basically said, I wish someone had told me to stop hurting myself on stage, because it ended up not being very cool for anyone.
Yeah, actually that's one of the first concerts I went to with my little brother was Gallows, weirdly enough. And one of the people from that band, Archangel, in the Village, Tank, now plays in the Rattlesnakes.
Oh, nice.
Very, weird coincidence.
Great harmony.
Yeah, very strange link up.
Well, but it happens. I mean, if you care enough, you'll end up, if you do it long enough, even, you end up just doing interesting stuff, I think. But the battle is to do it for long enough and not be persuaded by yourself or by other people around you to stop playing music and to stop doing the thing. And really, I think that's what this podcast is all about, right? Because it is about trying to make it work and doing anything you can to keep playing music.
Yes, absolutely.
And let's give a bit of background for people who don't necessarily know the whole kind of map of Garden Centre. And King of Cats was the first time I was aware of you in Brighton.
Yes. So I did the band. Well, I wrote loads of albums as King of Cats when I was really young. When I first started getting into sort of, I got really obsessed with that sort of slightly more kind of left field side of like Enemy pop, like kind of Patrick Wolf and stuff like that.
Okay.
And like Shoo Shoo.
I don't know either of them.
Oh yeah, classic 2000s sort of like left field pop stuff. But really easy to get, like stuff that had like forums.
Okay.
Like a lot of opportunities to go on. Yeah, per band, a lot of opportunities to go on forums and make friends and enemies. Just started making loads of music under King of Cats.
And you're making that at home. Is the kind of pop where you could self-produce at home and you're learning how to, you're getting secondhand machines and working it out.
Yeah, definitely. And like a lot of, I think it's a turning point in many people's sort of getting into music or DIY music anyway, when you start listening to people who very clearly make things at home or make things just with their friends. And you find that you can kind of do it yourself with like Audacity.
Yeah.
And it's fine because it's fun.
Yeah. And there's energy in that. The first time you click record on Audacity to yourself, that's a thrill.
Definitely. I've heard Audacity is now turned into spyware, which is great.
What does that mean?
Like it's somehow stealing things from your computer or
KGB.
your personal data. Yeah, it's the KGB. They're just getting loads of like podcast producers' data and like DIY musicians' data, which I think is, what are they going to do with it?
Well, if you add it all up, collect the pennies.
Yeah, totally.
So you were producing at home and you got into it, like that kind of teenage time, and you started doing it quite prolifically, did you?
Yeah, I started doing it pretty prolifically, playing quite bad shows. I was quite, I think I was quite emotionally intense teenager, as many teenagers are, and I kind of still am.
Yeah, let it fly.
But I was very like confrontationally screechy and I don't know, like kind of slimy and weird at shows. And I had some of the best shows I've ever played, and also like got kicked off stage lots as well for being too annoying. And it was just true, I was being too annoying.
Fuck it. I mean, it sounds a lot more interesting than most bands.
I think it was a good way of forming my my boundaries as a musician.
Yeah.
And I met friends who are willing to tolerate that and be in bands with me, which is great.
That's it. The good litmus test. Just really let your freak flag fly at the soonest possible moment. And if, the people who are drawn to that, or at least aren't repelled, that's the crew.
Yeah, definitely. And I've had I've been lucky enough to find people that are, have like similar attitudes. which is like, just so lucky. And through that, I've formed loads of other bands. So I was in the Snivelers with Owen and Max from the Tubs, Lower Slaughter. So that they're like heavier bands.
Okay.
And then Garden Centre, which is the current thing I'm doing.
Is there a map? Is there a family tree of all of these bands? Has anyone thought, or is that a bit silly? Is that a bit uncool to do that?
There is one. Really recently, someone put one out.
Because I'd like to see it.
In The Guardian, and it has a little pictures of everyone's faces, and then sort of lines between all the people. It's kind of useful. It's a very useful item.
It's a really nice idea for you and for people who like those bands. There is this kind of like fascinatingly, mostly in my experience, unsaid thing of, it's fandom. Whether it's, local bands have always meant more to me than bands from any part else in the world. And there's something very special. I think, John Peel said something, really nice about how, I think it's Steve Lamacq when he did his last regular show on Six Music. He said there are bands who will play to 50 people, but they'll mean more to someone than any other band will mean to them.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I think with bands who are in maybe a slightly smaller community, and maybe there isn't so much of a differentiation between like someone that comes to their show and a member of that community, which I think is good. And I think that's the sort of that's what makes people feel like they belong in DIY scenes, because it's not about bands and people that follow those bands. It's about like a whole sense of belonging. And I know that it's flawed in many ways, and it's not perfect, but it is something really important.
You try. That's all you can do. Nothing's ever perfect. Making that community is awesome, because ideally they're places that it's not really expensive to get a drink behind the bar, and it's not really expensive to get a ticket, and you go and maybe you'll see someone across the room that you kind of know of, and there's something nice about that. It's very something human nature. We do need that. I think we need familiarity.
Absolutely. It's I definitely wouldn't be making music still after so long, and really improving and wanting to improve, if it wasn't for the fact that I felt like I was part of a group of people that all egg each other on.
Yeah, great. And it's equal parts fun and learning and trying and building. Definitely. How do you think that you've been able to keep it fun? If you reflect now, like how is it being around people who have a good sense of humor?
Yeah, that's part of it, and also the fact that I've never really learned any instruments properly, or learned how to produce properly, or learned how to sing properly, or learned how to like write music for and with bands properly. And so it's always fun because it's always something new. Yeah. Like when I listen to something and I think like, oh, maybe I should try writing in a way like that, or maybe I can make a noise that is somehow inspired by that, and maybe my friends can do things like this, and they come up with ideas as well. I feel like it's still exciting because it's just still so new to me, and it will always be new to me because I'll never get to the point where I feel like I know anything.
Brilliant. Love that. I had let's get into it. I mean, the job side of things, and getting to that age where you have to find a job and you pay rent and a lot of these responsibilities. I mean, even the word responsibility makes me want to puke up a little bit because it's just such a numbing word, isn't it? But talking about having fun, we want to make the ideal life for me, and it sounds like for you, is to make our adult life as fun, if not more fun, than being a teenager.
Totally. And I still go into a lot of my jobs in a way that is distinctly teenage, which explains as well why I've lost so many jobs, because I'm petulant.
What was the first time that you thought, okay, I mean, has it always been fast and hard jobs, or jobs that are kind of come and go very, very quickly?
It mostly has, but they've always been weird and fulfilling in different ways. Well, that's not true. I think a lot of when I've worked in call centers, things that's not been fulfilling. Mm-hmm. But when I've done other like fast jobs that only last like a few months or a year or a few years, it's always been, I've always got something out of them. Mainly because they've always been kind of because it gives me the opportunity to see myself as an object doing a thing as opposed to something indistinct.
That's so true. I often think that about my experience working those jobs. Things I found really hardest, the things I found the most confusing was when I didn't really know my place. Was this a job I was supposed to be doing well at? I didn't know how to value it, or whether I should stay there for a long or short amount of time. There is some satisfaction from being like, this is what I do, and this is the start and the end of it.
So I tend to go for the ones that are easily definable, and I can just be like, you could ask a child to draw a picture of a person who has that job, and they'd be able to draw the picture because they'd have like distinguishing features like a hat.
That's when you're working in the lobby of the hotel.
Yeah, I wore. I used to work as a little train driver in Brighton on the beach, and it was like an old train. And at one point, my boss, who was very eccentric, took me into his office and measured me up for a bespoke hat. And then for the rest of the year, I was the only person that did this, but I just wore a little hat, and I was really pleased with it. I know it's like, this must be what, like, I don't know, like firemen feel like or something, because they're just like, well, I'm not a person anymore as much as I am a hat.
You're a character.
Yeah.
This is the train line on the, well, I suppose it's the east, on the left of the pier, the mini railway.
Yeah, that's the one.
No way. No.
I did that for hilarious. 3 years. They were great.
So you drove that train?
Yeah, it goes from the pier to the nudist beach and just back and forth every day.
Wow. How did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I don't know, when I worked there, it was a very strange place to work. It had an amazing old school feel to it. It was council work, and it was still very much like they would send you to the pub, and there was a really amazing eccentric head engineer who just loved playing the guitar in the workshop, and we made the trains late once because he got me to do a duet of Jackson Browne's Take It Easy with him. Or like do like a little session where I tried to teach him how to sing like Sia. And It was just really nice. There was just a really like, don't know, you just honk the horn and like a 10-year-old would wave at you.
You applied for a job there. You saw the miniature railway line. I implore anyone who's listening to this who doesn't know Brighton to just quickly Google this, because it'll be worth it. It is a miniature railway line that has 2 stops, and it is a small carriage.
It's really small. It's narrow gauge.
And you just about fit in?
I just about fit in. You can fit like 90 people on it if it's really full.
Mostly families.
And it's mostly families or fishermen going to the marina.
Right. Yeah.
And or nudists. And it is really slow. It goes like about running pace. And it's in kind of what I would describe as the wild west of Brighton, even though it's in the east. But it's like, I don't know what it's like now. I haven't been for a while, but it was a place that was kind of crumbling and had this sort of indeterminate cultural feeling to it.
Because you had the Concorde down there, but that was sort of stopped putting on gigs by the time I lived there. But that was the only thing.
it's a weird place because it feels if you first go there like there's nothing happening, but because it's a place where nothing's happening, it's also where lots of things are happening that can't happen in the rest of the city. It was where all the boy racers used to meet up in the early evening and just like blast like 9 different kinds of bass music. And then it was a big cruising spot, and there was the nudist beach. And it was where people would often camp. It was a really intriguing mishmash of people. And then you kind of drive through all these zones. It's just actually quite heartwarming to see that a city can't be controlled.
Yeah, and there is that kind of, it's sort of a big empty concrete space in a way.
Yeah, pretty much.
To the beach.
Yeah, isn't a big empty concrete space with like the memory of the Who haunting it.
And you'd finish those days and you'd be like, I've been paid for that. I'm getting paid for that. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And you were outside around people, surrounded by people having a good time.
Yeah.
It's not bad, is it?
I liked it. I liked it down there. I had some hairy sort of moments, I guess, there.
Did people try and take the piss?
People tried to steal the train once. That was really bad.
Wow.
It was like a really clever ambush by loads of children. I was driving on, along the beach, and I was going past the nudist beach, which is a big mound. If you haven't been to Brighton, and it's a big mound of stones to give the nudists a bit of privacy, or maybe the other way around. As I was passing the nudist beach, I noticed someone had tied the rope from a life buoy across the railway tracks. And so I stopped the train, and I got off the train and went and tried to untie the rope. And as I was untying it and I was off the train, like an army of like kids from the ages of like 5 to like 18 and like all ran across the nudist beach, and they all started attacking the like train, trying to get on it, trying to steal my keys.
Wow.
And they were running around on the tracks, which is really bad because the tracks are electrified. So I was trying to I was being like, get off the tracks. And whilst this was happening, obviously they did that thing where I was like, get off the tracks, and like sort of tried to like shove them off, all these kids. And of course they just said pedo straight away. The ultimate it's, you can't beat that. But also it was really weird. Like the people on the train, the passengers, they weren't helping at all. They were shouting at the kids whilst I was trying to like calm everything down and get everything off. Someone called the police. I didn't call the police. I was busy. Someone called the police, and they came and they started chasing the children around the nudist beach. And there were all these nudists, like these naked old, like older gentlemen, just in like little caps and like gloves, or the weird extra bits that nudists wear. They all just like being surrounded by children while police chased them around and around. And the children escaped. It was amazing. They actually got away. It was like Benny Hill, like the Keystone Cops or whatever. Like the kids were just somehow escaping the police in a very small area. Yeah,
unbelievable. And you survived.
I survived, and the train just trundled on.
101 part-time jobs. 101 part-time jobs.
That is perhaps the greatest job. Did you get that job because when you went to Brighton, you thought, what's going on there? Do they need someone to drive the train? I want to be that person.
I don't really know. Well, I came from a similar-ish similar-ish job at the marina where I was the lock keeper.
Nice.
So I had like vague. I knew how to operate a machine, or I could pretend how to operate a machine, and that's all that really they seem to need to know.
I mean, good on you. I mean, Brighton is a pretty hard place to find work, I think, or at least work that's fun, that's not in bars.
It's really hard, and I definitely worked in in bars in Brighton, and I didn't like it very, very much. I wasn't a very good bar keeper, because by the time it got to past midnight, I was already in that sort of state of not being able to do anything properly.
How long did you stay in Brighton for? I mean, I think of you and your friends and your community as very much Brighton Green Door Store based. Is where you were playing when I first heard of you and was seeing you, and now it's more where I'm sitting, Southeast London. Is that right?
Yeah, that did that kind of movement did happen. I was in Brighton, and much of Garden Centre was in Brighton for 5 ish years, and then a lot of the members of Garden Centre and the Tubs and Sniffy and the Nits, they all moved to South London. I moved to Yorkshire, and then after a year in Yorkshire, moved to South London. It was the pull of my friends was too great.
What was it like moving to York? I mean, presumably you wanted to keep playing music, you wanted to keep writing. I mean, I guess you can always play weekenders and you can arrange and get trains everywhere, but was that a bit of an impact for you?
It was pretty, yeah. It was pretty hard to organise practices. We still played shows, not very often. We went on tour during breaks from work.
Yeah.
As much as possible, and did weekenders, and would come and play when we could. But yeah, very little practicing, and it meant that I wrote a lot of the album in kind of isolation.
The new album,
I guess. Yeah. But it was, but then it had this other nice effect, was that I wrote all this stuff and then I could show it to people and they could change it.
Yeah.
And they could bring their own sort of, because they're all the other members of Garden Centre are kind of like, I respect them far more as musicians than I would respect myself, and so when they have these ideas, or when they come with any kind of suggestion, with any songs they bring to them, it always feels great, because it's like, I feel so lucky to have these people around me.
And did that happen more for this record than before?
Yeah, I mean, it's just because with this one I really did just write all of it in a room, and then on my own, and then kind of come, and everyone had to give me loads of ideas at the same time.
Nice. Collaborative.
There was no chance to really do much practicing. Yeah.
And was moving to York, was that because, or moving to Yorkshire, was that a what reason? What was the feeling there?
We got kicked out of our house in Brighton, me and my partner at the time, and I think I had applied for either a university course or a job at the football museum.
All right.
And I got both of them, and so I just moved up. We had some friends up there as well.
Nice. I didn't know about that. I mean, I'm not a huge football fan, but I do enjoy the routineness of it, and I love watching it when there's not much else to do. But I didn't know. I've never heard of the football museum.
It's really big, and it's in Manchester, and I was a tour guide, and I was not that good. Well, I don't know, I was okay. I know a little bit about football, and I like football, but not as much as you should know if you work at the football museum. You need to know loads.
How did you get it?
Everyone that comes in is like, I played football for Bolton.
Football's probably like the biggest vocation. It's like the biggest hobby, of anyone in England.
Yeah, it's like almost as big as like fly fishing or something.
How did you find it? Was it polite? Was the atmosphere all right? I mean, there's not a bar there, I suppose, so that helps.
I think there was a bar, and I think it was maybe owned by Gary Neville. I can't remember. Or like somehow he was involved. But it wasn't rowdy. It was very respectful and like a modern kind of a bit commercial museum, I guess.
Yeah.
It was quite commercial, but it was really nice when people came in because everyone had their own. Everyone that came in was so emotionally affected by football that they had their own stories to tell as much as anyone could tell them anything at all.
Nice. So you're in an area, you're in an environment where people really care about what they come in to see.
Yeah, it was like being at a show, kind of. It was like being at a really tall show where people don't like music.
Well, in the fact that people are attentive and people want to be there, and that's probably the most exciting thing they'll do that week.
Yeah, and that you can get into a conversation with a stranger about something really in depth and that you're really passionate about, and then you'll never see them again. And I think that's one of the, like in many areas of, like we all kind of seek that kind of thing. Music is just one avenue in which we seek it, and maybe perhaps quite a productive one. But I think, people came in and had the same reaction at a football museum as they would have at a show, where they came in and they had really strong emotions associated with something and managed to speak to strangers about it, which is incredible and rare in general.
That's nice, isn't it? So you'd finish those days and your cup would be full up, as per.
Nah, I'd be really bored and tired.
And you were,
in retrospect, it's great.
Some things are a lot easier to talk about afterwards, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So moving down to London, and you had did you know you were going to make the record? You know, he was going to make an album and do like make a push, promote it and tour it, and have it as a project.
Yeah.
What came first? Did kind of like paying the rent come first, or did the record come first?
Paying the rent took up more of my time, but in my head, music came first, which is, I think, something a lot of people feel, which is that really their heart is always in making music, and you're always thinking about music in your spare time. But then somehow life makes it so that you have less spare time.
Yeah.
You find yourself like tired after your job, and you can kind of like barely like rub together two sticks in your mind to create the spark of a thought about music.
Time, isn't it? Time is the big one.
Big time. But it didn't stop me when I moved to London. I moved in with another musician and our friends, and that was like really incredible. And I felt like quite free to make music, even though time wasn't always sort of on my side.
Was that because you were housemates? So when you were free, you were next to each other?
Not even that, because we weren't in the same bands or anything. It was just that they were in a band called Dreamwife, and it was it was just nice to go down and make like a bolognese and talk about music.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, yes, it's great.
It's not, music wasn't something you were stepping out of and into. It was all around.
Yeah, which is amazing.
I like that a lot. And I find that, I mean, I live in Deptford, and where there's a nice coffee shop downstairs. It's the punk rock coffee shop waiting room, and enough nicest places here that in a kind of knock-on kind of effect kind of way, I realized after maybe a year or two living here, I thought, oh wow, being here has had like a big influence in my life. Sometimes you live in areas that aren't very punk rock. Most areas aren't very punk rock, and so it feels like you're kind of stepping in and out of these two different worlds. And I very much appreciate and enjoy the kind of benefits of always being around that kind of feeling.
Yeah, I mean, Deptford is an amazing place to feel connected to music, I think, or at least connected to the sort of the sort of sort of lasagna of London.
Yeah,
It's
I'm with
like everything's happening all around you. It feels good.
I want to be around music forever. That's what I've realized. Probably late. I mean, I'm 32. I didn't realize this until fairly recently. You know, I think in my mid to late 20s, I was very confused and didn't know what was going on, and that's a difficult time. Have you had those kinds of years, the sort of wilderness years?
Oh, definitely, wilderness years, or at least years of more isolation than I would like.
Pre-COVID,
and pre-COVID, yeah. Obviously, during COVID is a different conversation. But yeah, I do. It does go in waves, and I do find it actually goes in waves based around being near my friends and going to shows and playing music, and getting involved with things.
That has that positive knock-on effect. You end up being more creative.
Yeah, like it's always easier to be creative when you're around other creative people, and that's why I would never ever want to judge anyone for not wanting to be creative, because it's like that you need these. It's like a great privilege to have the freedom to do it and the inspiration to do it, and it's not always possible.
Totally. I sometimes get scared about living a dull life. But there are some kind of steps you can take to hope that it's fun, but ultimately it's not really. It's kind of out of your hands, isn't it? Taste
definitely.
is exposure to a large extent. So if you're not exposed by cool stuff, then you don't even know what it is, and doesn't mean that you're not well educated in the music field that you're interested in. But it's just like you can't decide what you're going to find out about.
No, not at all. And it's like a lot of it is chance, or like I guess the sort of perhaps this isn't true, but like maybe an underlying political sort of morality. It was terrible use of the word morality.
No, go for it.
An underlying like political bend towards something can influence like the people you seek and the taste you have. But even that is exposure. It's hard to judge anyone for not being involved, because it's just so exclusive and hard to be involved. Especially in the UK,
you know, there's so much right-wing action on like lower levels and higher levels, you know, across the board. Even when, you know, that kind of element of, I don't know, I don't have any family members like this, but I lots of people do, of course, where they're like, well, why would you do that? Why would you spend all your money on your hobby and share it? You know, why wouldn't you just do something and keep it all for yourself? There is that kind of, that's a very British thing. But the UK is kind of, I feel like it's one of those, it's the pervasive atmosphere of the UK is one of little c conservatism and looking after a very small circle of like interests that surround you, which I guess has maybe led to this big C conservatism that we see, of course, being so prevalent. But it's more the prevailing like socially conservative attitude of people that creates this sense of like, well, why would you do that? Like, why would you do something that isn't? Why would you put like the culture of a space over property developers? Why would you why would you allow people to do things that are organizing but aren't to do with money? People are so scared of what they don't know, and that is you know, that conservative element of the mindset is so strong. So we got to fight against it, basically. You know, what you're doing with music is fighting against it just by virtue of existing. Well, I think there are some really amazing people organizing cultural institutions that are specifically non-profit and also put culture outside of the economy.
which I think is amazing. I think there's, I don't know what the status of it at the moment is, but there's theoretically a new venue opening in London called Sister Midnight, and they've been raising money for a long time. And I have great hopes that there'll be a space that puts culture over the economy.
Definitely. And they've started a radio station, haven't they? They've got the. Do they have a place yet? Is it in Lewisham that they've got a lease on somewhere?
That's my understanding. Yeah, because I know that somewhere fell through. I think somewhere in Catford. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about that.
Great. Well, I'll put links to Sister Midnight in the description of this episode, because I mean, it's people creating an independent venue where you can go and support independent art and spend your money. Spend your own money in something that's good for the culture that you support and make that you find exciting. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Definitely. London is especially, I'm sure other big expensive cities are like this as well, but London is an especially hard place to encounter music and arts venues that are not completely honed in on profiteering, because it's just so hard for people to pay rent. I guess if you go to some smaller cities in the UK, and definitely cities in Europe, there are venues that are self-sustaining-ish.
Or at least their governments recognise that they've recognised the value of venues in a community, and they help support with, financial and other support.
Totally. I could speak about this forever, to be honest.
How's it like for you now then? Work, balancing, music. How's it like for you now? And what's the sort of, how far ahead do you look? I mean, I feel like such a narc asking that question, but I also think that there's a lot of power in kind of thinking what you want to do in a year, and having those kinds of goals and trying to live a somewhat alternative lifestyle.
Yeah, well, I'm living I've got for the first time in, I guess, a long time, I've got a 9 to 5, which means I don't have much time, but I'm writing a lot of lyrics, which I'm enjoying, and
nice.
Thinking about a new Garden Centre album, which I'm really excited about. The big problem is trying to pin down all of the members of Garden Centre, because everyone is in about 7 bands. There's like Georgie is in Soup and Lash, Owen is in the Tubs and Sniffany and the Knits, and then Will is in PC World and Soup, and Laurie's in X Void. There's just so many bands always touring, George is in Porridge Radio as well, so it's when one tour ends, it seems like another tour begins. So you just got to find a little bit of time.
So how do you kind of wait for that little pocket?
One thing that I think is always good is I just play shows where we're all playing together. There was a recent show at the Hill Station Community Centre in Telegraph Hill, which is like a small community centre, but it was all the Gob Nation bands, so all the bands that Max from the Tubs puts out, and it was really great. And it was great as well because all these bands basically had the same members. It was a logistical purity.
I didn't know that place did shows. Is it the pizza place?
To be honest, it was a bit. They did have to turn the music down, and the neighbours, I think, complained. So maybe it isn't somewhere that will have shows that often.
Trial and error.
It was probably the wrong place to book like a punk show, maybe. But it was really, really fun.
The Ivy House is somewhere that Gob Nation has been putting on shows.
Yeah, the Ivy House is great. That's an incredible place. And it feels like it's just the right size as well. It's like bigger than most sort of venues like it in London, but still not massive. And it's beautiful, and it's run as a co-op as well. If
Brilliant.
you're in South London, get to the Ivy House.
Big time. Why do you think you're writing more lyrics with the 9-to-5 job?
Don't know. I guess it's partially it's just because of opportunity, because I don't have the opportunity to play, instruments all the time, and it's also just because I feel like I'm out and seeing and observing and thinking a lot, and in places that I'm not used to being in. so it's kind of
what is it? It sounds intriguing.
It's in Chelsea, so it's not a place
Very
that
nice.
I have spent much time in my life.
Very fancy there.
And it's
West
working
Kens,
at a
darling.
botanic garden, and it's just a kind of intriguing place. But also just I
Nice.
find myself in bits of London that I've not been in before, and seeing people, like seeing things that I don't usually see. And just generally any change in environment usually makes me write a lot of lyrics.
You work at a botanical garden. What are you doing there?
I am a volunteer manager, so I manage a volunteer group.
Very nice.
It's really fun. It's not something I've done
People
before.
who want to be there.
Yeah, people who want to be there. And everyone, I'm not a botanist, but I am learning about botany and the history of botany and the history of botany and empire.
Nice.
And it's like London in general. The garden as a microcosm is about tension and conflict and empire as much as it is about botany and medicine and pretty things.
The imagery, the history, the power, all big things going on in botany and plants.
All big things going on in botany and plants. Yeah. Turns out I like them.
Awesome. Great. So it's going to be quite flowery, the next record.
It's less flowery, I think. All the songs I've written so far have been less flowery than usual, less nature centered than usual. I don't know why, but I'm sticking to a lot of kind of little mini narratives, which I've really enjoyed over the last few years.
Nice. Good to hear. Well, enjoy it. That sounds good. Sounds
Thanks.
Rewarding. Thanks so much for being up for doing this, Max. I appreciate the time.
Oh, no. Thanks, Giles. Cheers for having me on.
Of course. I just before we go, I'm a big fan of the work gaff, Max. I'm a big fan of the work fail. And I quite like ending on them because I feel like, ends on a strong note, that makes everyone feel better about themselves and also gives some light relief about laughing about something that at the time maybe was painful. What comes to so what comes to mind? What is the most excruciating at the time? That's not actually hurtful.
I've had a few that have been really bad, or at least felt bad at the time. None I've been fired from quite a few jobs, but none of them are to do with gaffes. They're all to do with taking too much time playing music. But the gaff wise, the first one that comes to mind, I guess, is I was working at a burlesque club as the spotlight boy, and they had this horrible lounge singer who'd MC and he'd intro the dancers or the acts, and then he would sing a stupid song like Mac the Knife, and there was always loads of really drunk people in there, usually hen parties or stag do's, and one time the hen got on stage with the MC as he was singing, I think Minnie the Moocher, or something, another song that I hate now, and she got naked and held the MC and I was working the spotlight, and I didn't know whether to like keep following him around or to turn it off, because my dilemma was, if I turned it off, then it's unfair on him, but if I kept the spotlight on them, it's unfair on the person that's got naked, because it's not their fault, they're just really pissed. And I just ended up following them around the room with the spotlight whilst they were having a gaff of their own, I guess. And I feel quite guilty about it to this day, but I don't think anyone at all faced any repercussions or even really embarrassment.
That's a good one. If anything, were people not enjoying it? I mean, it sounds like something that, that sounds like some kind of thing that you'd like to see.
Well, people were enjoying it, but I don't think they were enjoying it maybe in a very well intentioned way. I think
they were being quite mean about it, were they? They were taking the piss.
Well, I think they were. Well, no, they were enjoying it, but they were, I don't know, should they have been enjoying it? I don't know, because I feel like it was...
Your sympathy lies with the drunk person taking off her clothes.
Big time, yeah. And my sympathy never lies with the MC who was singing Minnie the Moocher.
Maybe, I don't know what this says about me, maybe something bad, but I feel like if I see someone who's pissed, well, I guess it depends what kind of pissed, right? Because some people look like they're on drugs, kind of pissed, and that is sad. But if someone's having a good time pissed and they look less sausage-like than someone on drugs, this kind of sausagey feel, then that I feel like maybe that is a bit like, whoa, and I will watch it and enjoy it.
Oh yeah, I think there was like initially a sort of a spectacle, I guess. But yeah. I think spectacles can only go on for so long. They can't go on for the whole length of time of a song from the 30s. It's like, I guess they also probably were on a lot of drugs. It seemed like everyone there was. But it was...
It sounds like an adventure.
I don't know. It was a horrible club, and it was owned by a horrible man.
How did you get that job? Why would you got that job out of choice? You'd walk in, you handed your CV to them. Are you just very much up for these kinds of jobs, Max?
Big time. Well, I started off as a bar back, and then I just moved. Just for some reason, they were like, "Do you know how to work a spotlight?" And I was like, "No." Good, get up there.
Brilliant.
Yeah, it was like how like a boomer would describe getting a job. They just and then they just asked me to do it.
I wish it works more like that way.
Yeah.
Hey, this is great. Thanks so much, Max. We should do one again when the album comes out.
Yeah, maybe with the Phantoms now, but with the whole band.
Yes, would love that. That'd be a lot of fun.
Sweet. Well, thanks for having me.
So there was Max Levy. I cannot believe that we were just hearing from the driver of the miniature train of Brighton seafront just then. What a wild time. Great band, Garden Centre. Go listen to their latest record, Searching for a Stream. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you click subscribe. I put out 2 episodes each week of 101 Part-Time Jobs. Bands from all over with all different sounds, all with stories to tell. So if you want to hear more like Max's from today, then make sure you click subscribe. Anywhere, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. You can also leave a favourable review. That goes far. 101parttimejobs.com is the website that Eva and Tom built. Thank you so much, Eva and Tom. You can subscribe to the weekly newsletter there and get some amblings from me about my missed chances, my biggest cock-ups, all the good stuff. I'll be back next week with episodes with real estate and the chisel and lots more to come. Cheers again and see you soon.
It is Ryan here, and I have a question for you. What do you do when you win? Like, are you a fist pumper, a woohooer, a hand clapper, a high fiver? I kind of like the high five, but if you want to hone in on those winning moves, check out Chumba Casino. At ChumbaCasino.com, choose from hundreds of social casino-style games for your chance to redeem serious cash prizes. There are new game releases weekly, plus free daily bonuses, so don't wait. Start having the most fun ever at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.